Aston Martin just suffered a power unit failure so serious, it could derail their entire 2026 season before it even begins. And it happened on day 1. 36 laps. That is all the AMR26 completed in Bahrain. While Red Bull and McLaren crossed 100 laps without drama, Aston Martin sat in the garage. Engine covers off. Honda engineers surrounding the car. And one phrase released to the media. Data anomaly. That sounds harmless. It is not. Because under the new regulations, the electrical system is massive. More hybrid power. More thermal load. Less margin for error. And if this issue is not just software, but cooling integration inside Newey's ultra-tight packaging, then this is not a small problem. It is structural. This is a factory Honda partnership. A championship-level project. Fernando Alonso waiting for his first proper run. And instead of performance simulations, they are checking whether the engine can survive Bahrain heat. So now the real question becomes urgent. Did Aston Martin just encounter a minor calibration glitch? Or expose a dangerous weakness in their entire integration philosophy? What we are about to break down reveals why this was not just a bad afternoon. It may be the first stress fracture in a high-risk, high-reward project. Subscribe now, because this story could define Aston Martin's season before the first race even starts. The moment the AMR26 stopped running, the atmosphere inside the garage changed. Not panic, but urgency. Because this was not a visible explosion. No smoke. No dramatic failure on track. It was something quieter. More technical. And sometimes, those are the most dangerous problems. The official explanation was a data anomaly in the Honda power unit. That sounds like a sensor irregularity. A software flag. A precautionary shutdown. But in modern Formula 1, especially under the new hybrid heavy regulations, a data anomaly is rarely isolated. The electrical systems in 2026 cars are more powerful than ever. Energy recovery is massive. Battery loads are higher. Deployment strategies are more aggressive. Which means thermal margins are thinner. Now connect that to Aston Martin's design philosophy. Ultra-tight bodywork. Compact side pods. Minimal cooling openings. Newey has always believed in aggressive packaging. Squeeze everything. Gain aerodynamic efficiency. But that approach only works if heat can escape efficiently. Observers in the pit lane reported repeated work around the radiator areas even before the shutdown. That is not coincidence. That suggests thermal management was already on the edge. And Bahrain is not forgiving. High track temperature. Hot ambient air. Long straights that demand sustained deployment. If the hybrid system overheats, the control software intervenes. Power drops. Safety protocols trigger. And sometimes, the entire system shuts down to prevent catastrophic damage. That could explain the sudden garage confinement. Now think about the strategic cost. 36 laps. That is barely enough for installation validation. It is nowhere near enough for long-run tire understanding. It is nowhere near enough to correlate aerodynamic balance at high fuel loads. McLaren already knows how their car behaves after 15 laps on the medium compound. Red Bull already understands how their rear stability holds in crosswinds. Aston Martin does not. And that knowledge gap compounds quickly. Because testing is short. Every hour lost multiplies pressure. There is also the integration factor. This is not a customer engine. This is a full factory Honda partnership. That means exclusive collaboration. Shared data. Shared ambition. But it also means responsibility. If something fails, there is nowhere else to look. The integration between chassis and power unit must be perfect. Cooling ducts. Electrical connectors. Software calibration. Energy recovery mapping. Everything must speak the same language. And day 1 suggests that language may still be learning itself. Fernando Alonso was not in the car today. But he was inside the garage. Watching. Listening. Asking questions. For him, tomorrow is more than a driving session. It is a trust exercise. If he rolls out and the car runs smoothly for 100 laps, confidence returns instantly. If the car spends more time in the garage, doubt grows. And doubt in a new project spreads quickly. Now here is the deeper concern. When a team loses time due to reliability, development priorities shift. Instead of optimizing aerodynamic balance, engineers focus on stabilizing systems. Instead of refining front wing angles, they reinforce cooling margins. Instead of chasing performance, they chase survival. And once that mindset takes over, championship momentum slows. Day 1 did not prove the AMR26 lacks speed. It proved that its integration tolerance is tight. Very tight. And in a regulation reset year, tight tolerances are risky. Because small miscalculations create large consequences. If the anomaly is software-related, Honda can recalibrate overnight. If it is thermal, bodywork compromises may be necessary. And bodywork compromises reduce aerodynamic purity, which reduces performance ceiling. So the scary reality is not that Aston Martin had a bad afternoon. It is that the entire concept may be operating closer to the edge than expected. High reward, high risk. And on day one, the risk showed itself first. Tomorrow will reveal whether that risk was controlled or structural. Because in Formula One, early warning signs matter. And Bahrain just delivered one. Now let us confront the part nobody inside Aston Martin will say out loud. This project was always built on a tight timeline. Adrian Newey joined late in the development cycle. The chassis concept was ambitious from the start. The packaging was extreme. And the Honda partnership, while exclusive and powerful, required full integration under completely new regulations. That is a lot of moving parts. And when you combine late integration with aggressive design, the margin for error shrinks dramatically. Here is why this matters. Under the 2026 rules, the hybrid system is no longer secondary. It is central. Electrical deployment plays a decisive role on straights. Energy recovery under braking is massive. Battery temperatures rise quickly. Control electronics operate at higher sustained loads. If the cooling architecture is even slightly undersized, stress accumulates rapidly. And Bahrain's climate exposes weakness instantly. This is not Europe in spring. This is desert heat. Long straights. Heavy braking zones. Maximum energy cycling. If Aston Martin's anomaly was triggered by ERS temperature instability, that suggests the integration between Honda's electrical architecture and Newey's compact chassis might be too aggressive. And if that is true, solving it is not just a software patch. It becomes a structural compromise. More cooling means larger inlets. Larger inlets mean more drag. More drag means lower top speed. Lower top speed means strategic disadvantage. You see how quickly one issue cascades. Now consider the development psychology. Red Bull completed their program smoothly. McLaren gathered long-run data. Ferrari validated upgrades. Aston Martin validated survival. That shifts internal focus. Instead of asking how much performance can we unlock, the engineers ask how do we ensure this runs safely. And that is a different mindset. A necessary one. But not a championship-driven one. There is also the Alonso factor. He has limited time left at the top of the sport. He joined this project believing in factory ambition. Believing in Honda commitment. Believing in Newey brilliance. If early reliability falters, patience becomes thinner. Not publicly, but internally. And driver confidence is fragile. If a driver doubts energy deployment stability or fears sudden shutdown mid-corner, he adapts subconsciously. He leaves margin. And margin costs tenths. Now here is the uncomfortable possibility. What if the data anomaly was not a single event? What if it was the first visible symptom of a system running too close to its limit? Compact cooling. Aggressive deployment maps. Tight aerodynamic packaging. All optimized for peak performance. But operating with minimal safety buffer. That approach can win championships if controlled perfectly. But in early testing, control is not yet perfect. That is why day one feels heavy. Because it was not dramatic. It was subtle. And subtle problems in modern hybrid Formula One cars often require deep investigation. Deep investigation costs time. Time costs development. Development defines championships. Yet, it is not all negative. The anomaly was detected before catastrophic failure. No engine replacement on track. No public breakdown in front of cameras. Monitoring systems worked. Honda engineers were already on site. Full factory collaboration means immediate data access. That matters. Because if the root cause is found quickly, this entire narrative flips. From vulnerability to resilience. But here is the truth. Testing days are short. Momentum is fragile. And Aston Martin cannot afford another afternoon like that. Because if tomorrow repeats the same pattern, the gap in understanding grows wider. Tire data remains incomplete. Aerodynamic correlation remains unverified. Race simulation remains hypothetical. And rivals continue moving forward. The scary reality is not that Aston Martin failed on day one. It is that their concept appears to operate very close to the edge of its limits. And when you build at the edge, every minor anomaly becomes magnified. The AMR26 might still be fast. It might still have a high aerodynamic ceiling. But speed means nothing without endurance. Tomorrow decides whether this was a minor tremor. Or the first crack in an ambitious foundation. And in Formula One, foundations matter more than headlines. Now we reach the part that could define Aston Martin's entire season. Because the longer this situation lingers, the more it reshapes their development path. Formula One is not forgiving when you start behind. Every lap in testing builds a knowledge base. Tire behavior, fuel sensitivity, brake temperatures, energy deployment curves. Aerodynamic balance shifts as rubber builds on track. Aston Martin lost almost half a day of that invisible preparation. And under new regulations, that invisible preparation is everything. If you do not understand how the new Pirelli compounds degrade over a 15-lap stint, you cannot optimize race strategy. If you do not confirm how your cooling behaves at high fuel loads, you cannot push engine mode safely. If you do not validate ERS recovery patterns under maximum braking, you cannot fine-tune deployment for overtaking. Day one should have been about building that foundation. Instead, it became an exercise in troubleshooting. Now imagine the pressure inside the factory tonight. Engineers cross-referencing data logs. Honda technicians analyzing hybrid temperature spikes. Software specialists reviewing deployment calibration. Cooling simulations being rerun. Every department searching for a root cause. And here is where the psychological element intensifies. When a team spends hours diagnosing instead of refining, confidence tightens. Drivers feel it. Engineers feel it. Management feels it. Because the AMR26 was presented as a high-ambition project. Factory Honda power. Newey influence. Aggressive packaging. Title-level intent. And day one forced them into defensive mode. But let us consider the alternative. What if this anomaly was triggered by overly cautious software thresholds? A sensor misreading temperature spikes. A calibration mismatch between chassis and power unit control systems. If that is the case, the fix could be swift. And tomorrow could look completely different. 100 laps. Full race simulation. Stable hybrid output. If that happens, today becomes a footnote. But if tomorrow brings another extended garage stay, the narrative changes permanently. Because 2 days of limited mileage in a 3-day test is not a hiccup. It is a handicap. And handicaps under a regulation reset are brutal. Rivals will already be exploring fine aerodynamic tuning, while Aston Martin would still be validating system reliability. The scariest reality is not the anomaly itself. It is the possibility that the car's performance ceiling depends on operating close to thermal limits. If the design only works at minimal cooling margin, then every hot race weekend becomes a risk. Every high-energy circuit becomes a stress test. And championships are not won on stress management alone. They are won on freedom to push. Right now, Aston Martin does not have that freedom. They have questions. Tomorrow decides whether those questions turn into answers. Or multiply. Because in modern Formula One, integration is everything. You can design the most efficient aerodynamic platform on the grid. But if the power unit cannot survive the load inside that platform, the entire concept weakens. Day one in Bahrain did not confirm failure. It exposed vulnerability. And vulnerability, if not corrected immediately, becomes limitation. The AMR26 might still be a breakthrough. It might still deliver pace once unleashed.